Hi, this is Diana. Welcome back to my channel Dinky Loves Books. That's all about books and reading. Well, the whole of the literary world is talking about Margaret Atwood's The Testaments, which is a sequel to The Handmaid's Tale that was published in 1985. And this book is talking about what happens 15 years later and is told through the perspective of three characters. One is Aunt Lydia, one is Agnes, and the third is Daisy, and I'll just get into that shortly. But first, let me talk about The Handmaid's Tale. If there are any of you who've not read The Handmaid's Tale, I'll quickly tell you what it's about. It's a dystopian novel about the Republic of Gilead, which is the erstwhile America or the US. There's a military dictatorship that has taken over the country, and there are new rules and laws that are in regulation. One such group of people are commanders, and if their wives are not able to bear children, they have a group of women to serve them who are called the handmaids, and their sole purpose is to have intercourse with the commanders and get pregnant, bear their children, and hand over those babies to the commander's wives to care for as their own. The handmaids are supposed to keep doing this till they can bear children, and when they can't, they are then replaced and sent to a place where they are supposed to dispose of nuclear waste or some such thing. The rules of this place, Gilead, are based on Christian fanaticism and some very archaic and misogynistic rules, according to me, that are based in the Old Testament of the Bible, and that's how they run this country. It's quite regressive, but they think it's the best way to restore law and order into the country, and also to ensure that they are able to procreate and repopulate the country. Another group of women are the aunts, who are women who are quite elderly and they are no longer of childbearing age, and they, in their former lives, they've held some position of power and are quite educated and are quite experienced. Their job is to mentor and to teach the handmaids and to ensure that they follow the rules and do what is required of them. In The Handmaid's Tale, Offred tells us about the atrocities that are committed in Gilead, and also describes how the country is run, what they go through, how the Republic of Gilead is perceived by others outside it. At the end of the book, she gets pregnant and she is taken away by a group of men who can either be part of Gilead's military dictatorship, or then they could possibly be the resistance. We never really know. The book closes when Offred is being taken away by these men, and so we never really know what happens to Offred. That's where the book ends. So to address this question of what happened next, Margaret Atwood has written The Testaments, which tells us what happened and where Offred is 15 years down the line. There is one particular aunt who is called Aunt Lydia, who is an icon. She has attained the status of one of the founders or the original aunts of Gilead, and so everybody looks up to her. She has a lot of power and authority. In this book, she talks about how she had to go through a lot of misery and distress to get to where she is now. She used to be a judge in her former life, and she was a very respected individual even then. She lost all of that power and authority and respect, and she had to go through a lot of crap before she became the aunt that she is today. She had to do a lot of things that she wouldn't have done. When it's a question of survival, then I suppose you have to take some very tough decisions. That's what she did. That's how she went from being a very just judge who upheld the law to the monster that she is considered today. Now, there's a TV series that you could watch, but in my opinion, the TV series is quite different from the book. I mean, it picks up a lot of elements from the book, but then it has been rewritten to appeal to viewers. It has a lot that the original book does not have. So if you were just to watch the TV series, you wouldn't get the essence of the book in its truth and totality. If you were to read The Handmaid's Tale and then watch the TV series, you would get a much better idea of what the differences and similarities are between the book and the TV series. But I think you should definitely read The Handmaid's Tale before you start watching the TV series. Some people say that the book is quite a disappointment and it was not what they were expecting. In my opinion, it is really about how you approach the book. If you had some prior lofty expectations of the book and then you approach it thinking that this is what it should be about, then yes, you're going to be disappointed. In my opinion, an author is not bound by our expectations. They are under no obligation to write what we expect them to, or to give the book an ending that we want them to. Their responsibility is to just tell the story the way they see it. How we interpret it and what we take away from it is a very individual and personal experience. So I don't think it's fair of us to blame the author and say that their work didn't live up to our expectation, because they were never bound to do that in any case. I think Margaret Atwood answered it best when she said, will this ruin my future, my literary reputation? If I were 35, you would be absolutely right to ask that question, but it's not a chief concern of mine. Another question is, was this book predictable? Yes, to a great extent, but this book never promised to be a mystery thriller, so that's quite okay that we could guess what was going to happen next. Was the book simplistic in its moral of good triumphs over evil? Yes, but I think if it had been any other way, we would have been quite disappointed and we would have been left very dissatisfied and with a bitter taste in our mouths, because we would have expected it to end where good triumphs over evil. What I didn't like about the book was that Offred didn't appear throughout the book at all, except for a brief moment, and she hardly speaks 3 sentences. And I think that was very disappointing to a lot of readers, because they were expecting Offred to be there a lot more in the book, because we wanted the book to be about Offred. So that bit was disappointing. Another thing I didn't like was that the end was too neat and tidy and a lot of loose strings were tied up, but I suppose that was done so that leaving anything unanswered would have necessitated a further sequel, and perhaps that's what the author wanted to avoid, so that's why she wrapped things up very nicely at the end. Overall, I was quite satisfied with the book. I think the character of Aunt Lydia was just brilliant. I wouldn't have minded, in fact, if the entire book had been carried on the back of Aunt Lydia. I didn't really think the parts about Agnes and Daisy were that interesting. I did not particularly like the character of Agnes, because she was representative of the silly, vacuous, blithering idiots that Gilead turns its women into. I also didn't like the character of Daisy, because she was silly in her own way. She was very radical and overzealous, but if she were to just calm down and think of things clearly, she would understand that she is a very important part of Gilead's history, and she could have wielded that and used it as leverage to get a lot of what she wanted, to achieve what she wanted. But like I mentioned, she was overzealous and she didn't have a clear idea of what it is that she wanted to achieve, and didn't clearly and carefully think about how she could play her cards very carefully and very strategically, and therefore she ruined much of her chance of creating the impact that she claimed that she always wanted to have. A lot of times through her actions, she endangered herself and a lot of other people who were trying to look out for her. So no, the character of Daisy was not a character that I really liked in the book at all. Like I said, I loved Aunt Lydia, and I liked the fact that in this book we get a representation of Gilead and its story from Aunt Lydia's perspective, because in the first book, The Handmaid's Tale, we were presented with Offred's account of what was going on, and that was quite one-sided and narrow, through no fault of Offred's, because that's all that she got to see in Gilead, and that's all that she could report to us. But Aunt Lydia had access to a lot of other information, and she could share that with us. So I think having Aunt Lydia's perspective on Gilead made the book much more interesting and well-rounded, and gave us a clearer perspective and a much more interesting and engaging perspective, in my opinion. So yes, overall I was happy with the Testaments, and I'm also a bit sad that it ends over here. I think the character I miss the most will be Aunt Lydia, as strange as that sounds. But I'm sure that it will not go out of our minds, because some network will pick it up and create a series that will go on and on till the end of time. If you've read the book already, I would love for you to share your thoughts with me in the comments section below. If you've liked this video, please don't forget to give it a like and also subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. I'll be back soon with another video all about books and about reading. So if you like that, please come back for that. I'll see you then. Bye.